Yo YouTube, what's going on? It's HIGHMMA, and today we are here to discuss UFC 304. That's right, this video is my predictions for the card, who I think is going to win, how I think they're going to win, some of the things that might happen on the card. There's a lot to get through today, so I'm not going to mess around with this intro. Let's get straight into the video. Okay, so to start us off, we have Preston Parsons versus Oban the Welsh Gangster Elliott. Now, me personally, I'm going to pick Oban Elliott going into this one, man, because he looked really good against Val Woodburn. Don't get me wrong, he got clipped a couple times, but he showed that he has a good ground game. He controlled Val Woodburn on the ground. He was getting some good combos off on the feet, and Val Woodburn is a fucking tank. So I'm thinking if there's a fighter that might not be as tanky, he might be able to get a finish. So for that reason, I'm going to be picking Oban Elliott by a round 2 finish. I think he's going to get a submission. Now, Preston Parsons has made himself look beatable before. He was beaten by D-Rod, I'm pretty sure. Not the greatest look considering that, well, look at, for example, Ian Gary smoked D-Rod on his way up. And, you know, if Preston Parsons had the kind of potential that an Ian Gary had, maybe he would have done the same. So, I can't say too much about these two fighters because I don't know everything in depth about them. But from what I've seen from both, I think Oban Elliott's getting this win. And he's the underdog. So we're rocking with Oban Elliott. Let's go. Let's move on further up the card. Okay, next up is the Battle of the Blobs. It's Mick Parkin versus Lucas Brzezinski. I think that's how you pronounce his name. But I've got Mick Parkin winning this one, honestly, by decision. He's undefeated, which is impressive for a heavyweight. You know, he's had submission finishes, he's had finishes on the feet, and he's had decision wins. So it shows that, you know, he has the cardio to go 3 rounds. You know, he's got a well-rounded base. And I'm pretty sure he trains with Tom Aspinall, which looks really good on him. And, you know, his opponent got beaten by Martin Buday. He's had a good few losses. Doesn't look really that good. Mick Parkin looks pretty good. So I'm going to go with Mick Parkin. Like I said, for these early prelim fights, I don't really know too much about the fighters. I'm just going off of what I already know about them and what has impressed me. And Mick Parkin specifically has impressed me a lot. So I'm going to rock with him in this fight. Mick Parkin, HIGHMMA has spoken. Moving up the card, we have Molly McCann taking on Bruna Brazil. Now, I couldn't be arsed making the whole template thing for this fight because it's a women's fight. It's basically a fucking coin toss. So, I've got Molly McCann by some sort of spinning elbow in round 2. I don't fucking know, man. Let's move on to a more important fight. Next up, we have Nathaniel Wood taking on Daniel Pineda. Now, Nathaniel Wood has been in the UFC for a fucking long time. And, you know, he's had some good wins on his resume recently. You know, he's beat Jourdain, he's beat Philly, and he's only fucking 30 years old. He has great grappling. He's won a couple even grappling matches. And, you know, I think Pineda won't have the skill to beat Wood on the feet either. He's lost to Caceres. He's like fucking 38. He's on the back end of his career. I don't think he's going to be able to take the skill of Nathaniel Wood. I think it's going to go to decision. I think Nathaniel Wood will control him on the ground for the majority of this fight. Let's move on. Now, next up, we're talking about Makayev versus Manel Kape. Now, I am going to be pretty bold with this pick. I've got Muhammad Makayev by round 2 submission, or maybe even round 3 submission. Look, Manel Kape's resume is overrated. The only notable win in his career is Kaya Sakura, and that wasn't even in the UFC. He's literally only had 1 finish since he's joined the UFC. People are only picking him because they think he's funny from the press conference moments, but in reality, he is not as impressive as you think he would be. And, you know, he's had so many cancelled fights. It just doesn't look good on him. And, you know, Makayev's at the start of his career. He's been dominant so far, literally undefeated. He's had loads of submissions, regardless if you want to say he's a boring fighter. And I do think he will prove the doubters wrong come UFC 304. I think he will beat Manel Kape by round 3 submission. I'm going to change that to round 3 submission. But let's move on further up the card. Next up, we have Giga Chikadze taking on Arnold Allen. Now, I'm picking Arnold Allen because he has fought some of the best fighters in featherweight at the moment. He took 2 rounds off of Holloway in their fight, even though he lost that. I believe he beat Movsar Evloev. And, you know, he's young in his career. His striking is insane. He has 5-round cardio. And I think Giga Chikadze hasn't fought anyone with the skill of Arnold Allen ever in his career, you know, and his fight with Caceres was too close to say that he'll be able to stand and bang with Arnold Allen, and he's 35. Bro, I think he's going to lose this fight by a finish. I think Arnold Allen's going to get a round 2 KO, honestly. I think it's going to be a bit of a statement fight to show him that he is up there in featherweight. I believe he is a top 5 featherweight right now, and I want to see him fighting for the belt within his next 2 or 3 fights. Let's move on further up the card. Now, next up, we have Christian Leroy Duncan taking on Gregory Rodriguez. Now, I feel like the logical pick would be CLD in this situation, considering he's only got 1 loss on his record altogether. He looks sick in Cage Warriors. You know, he lost to Petrosian. But something is making me want to pick Gregory Rodriguez because, you know, he's got more experience. He's got great grappling. He's got good stand-up. He looks like a fucking Dragon Ball Z character, bro. And I don't know, he's 32, it's not like he's old, and I think there is the potential of him just getting the better of CLD here. I think it's a really close fight, closer than you might expect. I wouldn't be surprised if CLD gets a finish, but I think the fact that he's lost to someone like Petrosian shows that he could lose to someone like Gregory Rodriguez, and for that reason, I am picking Gregory Rodriguez by round 3 finish. I think he'll get a TKO, or it could go to decision, but I think Rodriguez could get that finish. But let's move on further up the card. Okay, now we have a fight I have been very excited for. It is Paddy the Baddy Pimblett taking on Bobby King Green. Now, honestly, I have Paddy the Baddy getting a round 1 finish. I think he might get a round 1 KO or submission. This is why. I know I'm going kind of crazy with all these finishes, but just hear me out, right? Bobby Green hasn't really fought anyone that impressive in his career and won. Like, I know you might say, oh, well, he beat Tony Ferguson. Tony Ferguson was fucking old and out of his prime by a mile. And I don't really think he's won against anyone that really has the skill level of Paddy Pimblett. You might say, oh, but he recently beat Jim Miller. Jim Miller's old as fuck, bro. And, you know, he got dominated on the ground by Islam Makhachev. Paddy the Baddy can take it to the ground if he wants to and dominate him there. I think, you know, on the feet, the boxing exchanges might be quite even because King Green does have some great boxing. I'm not going to say that he doesn't, but Paddy the Baddy has some crazy power, and, you know, he might show that in this fight. And, you know, Bobby Green is so chinny. If he takes a heavy shot, he's getting put out. Look at what happened in the Jalen Turner fight. That should tell you enough about this fight to know that Paddy the Baddy has the potential to put him out, and I think he will. Round 1 KO is what I'm leaning towards, but if it goes to the ground, I see Paddy getting a submission, but I'm leaning more towards the KO. Let's move on up the card. Next up, we have Curtis Blades taking on Tom Aspinall. Now, I have Tom Aspinall winning this fight via, I think it might go to, like, further than the first round. I think there will be a feeling out process, because I think Tom Aspinall might be a bit nervous about his knee, considering the last time he fought Curtis Blades, his knee fucking just caved in on itself or whatever. So I think there will be a long feeling out process, but I do think that once Tom loosens up, he's going to find that finish very fast. I see either a KO or TKO in round 2. But if it goes to the ground, I think there will be some great wrestling exchanges. Tom Aspinall has some of the best wrestling in the game. His family actually are descendants of the original starters of Catch as Catch Can Wrestling that originated in Northern England. Just a fun fact. But, you know, Tom Aspinall has KO power. He's shown it against Pavlovich. And you know, Curtis Blades has been KO'd before in his career. And I don't think he will be able to deal with the middleweight-like movement of Tom Aspinall, seeing as Curtis Blades moves like he shat his pants. So, yeah, for that reason, I'm picking either a round 2 or round 3 TKO for Tom Aspinall. Let's move on to the final fight of the card. Now, to close out this card, we have Leon Edwards versus Belal, forget the name, Muhammad. Listen, I think Leon Edwards will win this fight by decision if Belal Muhammad's chin can hold up the full 5 rounds. But that being said, if there was ever a fight where Leon Edwards was going to come out and get an early finish, which would just be like finding a shiny fucking Pokemon or something, it would be this one. Now, the first fight they had proved that he dominated Belal Muhammad in that first round. You know, letting off some crazy combos. And he's so much more skilled than he was then. Now, I get Belal Muhammad is as well. But, you know, his last 3 fights have been against wrestlers, so if that fight was going to go to the ground at any point, he might not have looked as good then. It didn't before the eye poke, but if it does now, he's going to be able to show that his takedown defense is expert level. He's taken on Colby Covington and Kamaru Usman twice, and he 3 times even, and he dominated Kamaru Usman in that 3rd fight. That was a 5-round fight. And his distance control is amazing. Belal Muhammad might not even be able to get close enough to get some of these takedowns. And, you know, Belal Muhammad is 36. His cardio might not even be able to hold up this 5 rounds with someone like Leon Edwards that's just going to force him to throw and miss so much. And in his career, Belal Muhammad hasn't fought anyone at the skill level of Leon Edwards. This fight will prove it. Trust me. If that first round of that first fight didn't prove it, this fight will. But I do think it will go to decision. I think the first couple rounds, we're going to see a lot of body kick and kick exchanges. I think Leon Edwards will soften up the legs of Belal Muhammad. Belal Muhammad might get a couple good body kicks off. They're like his only good kick. But if Leon Edwards lands that head kick at any point in the fight, I think it will put Belal Muhammad out. Never count out Leon Edwards, bro. Do not fucking do it. He is one of the most skilled champions right now. And yeah, I'm picking him by decision to beat Belal Muhammad. Nothing more that needs to be said. So, without further ado, I'm going to wrap up the video. I'd like to thank you all for watching. And you know what I'm going to say? You don't have to like, you don't have to subscribe. Do what the fuck you want, man. But have a good night, and thank you all for watching. Peace.